Hello, testing. There we go. Okay. Yeah, I think I got it. Hey, how's it going, guys? Sorry about that. Today we're jumping into Revelation chapter 12. I bit off a little bit more than I could chew yesterday. I was trying to do 12 yesterday, but it seems like with Revelation, we got to do only 2 chapters a day. Let me make sure I'm not lagging. Give me 1 second. Okay, we're good. So let me get the text up and we can get going here. There we go. All right. So, where's my Bible? So today we're going to be talking about Satan. I know I had that as the title of yesterday's video, but I had to change it because we didn't have enough time to cover 12. But today we're doing it. So, let's do this. Chapter 12, the woman, the child, and the dragon. Sounds like some satanic Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. I'm going to get the volume on here. Okay, here we go.
Now a great.
Oh, well, let's just do a little recap of at least the last section. Yesterday we talked about the 7th trumpet. And what was the 7th trumpet? Hey, before we do it, let's look up. Let's see if we can get a nice visual aid. The 7 trumpets of Revelation. The 7th trumpet, the 3rd woe. The kingdom of the world becomes the kingdom of the Lord and his Christ. God's servants are rewarded and his enemies are destroyed. The 2 witnesses, we spent a lot of time on that, trying to figure out what that was. So the 7th trumpet. And let's read a bit from the actual Bible. Then the 7th angel sounded, and there were loud voices in heaven saying, The kingdoms of this world have become the kingdoms of our Lord and his Christ, and he shall reign forever and ever. And the 24 elders, we saw that, right? There's 24 elders and 4 living creatures before the throne of God. And the 24 elders who sat before God on their thrones fell on their faces and worshipped God. All right, so let's jump into this. Chapter 12, the woman, the child, and the dragon.
Great sign appeared in heaven. A woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and on her head a garland of 12 stars.
Okay. Now a great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun and a moon under her feet, and on her head a garland of 12 stars. It reminded me of the dream of Joseph with the sun, moon, and the 12 stars. But let's see if my Bible says anything about this. 12:1. It does not. Okay, no, it does. It does. In Revelation, a sign is a person or event that looks beyond itself to some greater significance. And John's Gospel, each sign points to the divinity of Christ. In Revelation, besides the additional great signs in heaven, there are demonic signs on earth. The woman clothed with the sun is interpreted by some as the church. The woman clothed with the sun is interpreted by some as the church. Okay. By others as believing Jews, and by still others as ethnic Israelites. Okay, so we know it is some sort of at least these commentators believe it to be some sort of monotheistic religion, Jewish or Christian. And not Gentile. I guess, see, this could also lead into your definition of what your definition of Gentile is, right? Because according to Paul, it's all up to your relationship with Jesus, right? We're not looking genealogically or anything like that. We're not looking at your ancestry, doing your 23andMe or anything like that. We're not looking at if you're a descendant of Abraham. We're looking at if you've accepted Jesus, and then you're a child of Israel, you know. So I feel like people who believe in that, if I'm reading this correctly, if I'm understanding this correctly, it could be that those who believe that the woman clothed with the Son is interpreted as the church. Maybe those who believe that also believe that those of the church are children of Israel. The reason I say that is because the next two are creating a distinction between Jews and ethnic Israelites. And so that would fall in line with, are you a descendant of Abraham? We're getting into the ancestry, the genealogy, and all that. I don't know if that's the case. I'm just if that's the correct interpretation of this. I'm just trying to connect the dots here. So the garland of 12 stars is reference to the 12 tribes of Israel, or perhaps the 12 apostles. Yeah, now that we have the 12 apostles, maybe that could be pointing to that. I would lean more to it being the 12 tribes, though. The stars recall Joseph's vision. That's what I said. Which signified the preeminence of Joseph over his brothers. And who are his brothers? The 12 tribes. Okay. Then being with child, she cried out in labor.
Then being with child, she cried out in labor and in pain to give birth. And another sign appeared in heaven. Behold, a great fiery red dragon having 7 heads and 10 horns, and 7 diadems on his heads. His tail.
What are diadems? A diadem, a crown. So maybe it could have had these crowns on each of the horns. Oh, 7 heads. What am I saying? Not 7 horns. 7 heads, 10 horns, and had a crown on each head, I'm assuming.
A third of the stars of heaven and threw them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman.
That's significant because I think this is where we draw the idea of Satan falling from heaven, which is why this section is subheaded Satan thrown out of heaven, right? And so Satan is thrown out of heaven, and a third of the angels rebelled also and fell with him. I think that's where this idea came from. And another sign appeared in heaven. Behold, a great fiery red dragon having 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 diadems on his heads. His tail drew a third of the stars of heaven and threw them to the earth. And we saw the parallel between stars and angels in Revelation. So if a third of the stars means a third of the angels of heaven, then you could see how maybe this could be talking about the red dragon being Satan and the stars being angels. So Satan being thrown from heaven with a third of the angels. Let me see if my Bible says anything about that. The sign of the fiery red dragon is interpreted as Satan, who first appears in Scripture as the serpent in the Garden of Eden. And from what I think I've read, that serpent and dragon can be used interchangeably. The imagery is in keeping with the Old Testament, an extra biblical usage. The dragon with 7 heads and 7 horns refers to Satan and the empire over which he rules during the course of time. 7 heads, 10 horns, and 7 diadems refer to Satan's brilliance, power, and glory as God of this age. God of this age, because we saw in Daniel's visions, each beast represented an empire, and an empire is sort of a designator for an age, you know? This description is almost identical to the one of the beast from the sea in chapter 13, which we'll see today. The reference to a third of the stars may link this event to the earlier trumpet judgments, in which a third is characteristic proportion of destruction, including a third of the stars, right? So maybe it could be talking about that a third of the stars will fall, like how we talked about prior, like stars falling. That could be. So whether you believe that actually stars are going to fall, whether you believe it's going to be a meteor shower, whether you could believe it's going to be angels falling. So is this talking about a coming destruction, or is this talking about the fall of Satan? Okay, so the reference to a third of the stars may link this event to the earlier trumpet judgments, in which a third is the characteristic proportion of destruction, including a third of the stars. However, many understand this reference to speak of the rebellion of a third of the angelic host following Satan. The attempt of the dragon to devour... Okay, we didn't get to that part yet, so spoiler alert. Let's keep going here.
His tail drew a third of the stars of heaven and threw them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman who was ready to give birth, to devour her child as soon as it was born.
And the dragon stood before the woman who was ready to give birth, to devour her child as soon as it was born. So if the child is Jesus, then the mother can't be the church, because of Jesus, the church was born. Okay? So the mother, that's why some people believe it could be the Jews, or it could be the ethnic Israels. So I see the interpretations here. Now that commentary is making sense. When they said, where is it? Well, you remember the Jews or the or ethnic Israelites.
To devour her child as soon as it was born. She bore a male child who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron, and her child was caught up to God and his throne.
Rule all nations with the rod of iron. Was that something that was talked about in Isaiah? Because would you say Jesus ruled the nations with a rod of iron? You will break them with an iron scepter. You will dash them to pieces like pottery. I declare the decree, the Lord has said to me, you are my son. Today I have begotten you. Ask of me, and I will give you the nations for your inheritance, the ends of the earth for your possession. You shall break them with a rod of iron. You shall dash them to pieces like a potter's vessel. Yeah, so is he talking about the Messiah here, or is he talking about an earthly king? He who sits in the heavens shall laugh. The Lord shall hold them in derision. Then he shall speak to them in his wrath, and distress them in his deep displeasure. Yet I have set my king on my holy hill of Zion. So are we talking about literally just a king in Jerusalem? Because that's where the royal bloodline sat. That's where the king sat. Why do the nations rage? I'm reading this backwards. Why do the nations rage and the people plot a vain thing? The king of the earth, the kings of the earth set themselves and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord and his anointed. Who is his anointed? David was his anointed, So are we talking about the bloodline of David? Let us break their bonds in pieces and cast away their cords from us. Or are we talking about the Messiah? That was a question that we asked as we were reading this. Now therefore be wise, O kings, be instructed, you judges of the earth. Serve the Lord with fear and rejoice with trembling. Kiss the Son, lest he be angry, and you perish in the way. But see, Jesus never acted this way. Or it could be talking about an eternal final judgment. When his wrath is kindled but a little, blessed are those who put their trust in him. See, so I can see this being a reference to the Messiah. I can also see this being a reference to a king from the line of Judah.
She bore a male child who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron, and her child was caught up to God and his throne. Then the woman fled into the wilderness, where she has a place prepared by God, that they should feed her there 1,260 days.
So the 1,260 days, we talked about that yesterday. Wasn't that how long the witnesses were going to... what was that? 1,260 days. Let me look that up again. Revelation 11 and 12, John mentions 1,260 days and two prophecies concerning another persecution of the Jews during the end times. Daniel 8 speaks 2,300 days in a prophecy concerning a persecution of the Jewish people during the intertestamental period. The main differences between these two prophecies are: 1, Daniel's has been fulfilled and John's has not. 2, Daniel predicts the actions of Antiochus Epiphanes and John predicts those of the Antichrist. Let me go to the actual text. Then I was given a reed like a measuring rod, and the angel stood saying, "Rise and measure the temple of God, the altar, and those who worship there. But leave out the court which is outside the temple, and do not measure it, for it has been given to the Gentiles." We had a whole discussion on this yesterday. "And they will tread the holy city underfoot for 42 months. And I will give power to my 2 witnesses, and they will prophesy for 1,260 days, clothed in sackcloth." And then here, and her child was caught up to God and his throne. Sounds like that could be Jesus being taken up to heaven to be with God again after he was sacrificed. "Then the woman fled into the wilderness, where she has a place prepared by God." If this is talking about the church fled into the wilderness where she had a place prepared by God, or God's people fled into the wilderness where they had a place prepared by God, and they should feed her, and that they should feed her there 1,260 days. And the witnesses are prophesying for 1,260 days. So is that the same event we're describing here? Let me pull up a commentary. I keep reading from my Bible, but you guys can't see it, so... I think it would be a whole lot easier, but I just do it like how I normally did it. Let's go 5. Oh, we're almost there. I'm in Psalm. I was wondering what's going on. A male child who was to rule over all the nations with the iron rod. Clearly, this is a reference to Jesus Christ, the Messiah. He rules with the iron rod. Do you think it's a clear reference to Jesus? Now, out of his mouth goes a sharp sword, that with it he should strike the nations, and he himself will rule them with a rod of iron. He himself treads the winepress of the fierceness and wrath of Almighty God. Okay. And we talked about early on vision of the Son of Man, right? Revelation 1:16. We'll just do 1. Vision of the Son of Man. I, John, your brother, and your companion, in the tribulation and kingdom and patience of Jesus Christ. Then I turned to see the voice that spoke with me, and having turned, I saw 7 golden lampstands, and then in the midst of the 7 lampstands, one like the Son of Man, clothed with the garment down to the feet. So he saw one, either he saw Jesus or someone like Jesus, someone that he thought was Jesus. And he had a sword in his mouth. And here, in Revelation 19, now out of his mouth goes a sharp sword. If this is talking about the same person as being talked about here, as the child, then this child is the Messiah. You see how you can draw that line all the way back to this? She bore a male child. This refers to Jesus' birth. Rule all nations with the rod of iron. Refers to the triumphant return of Jesus. By stating the starting point and ending point of Jesus' earthly work, John alluded to all that stood in between. But who is this lady? Let's see if this commentator has anything to say about that. Or did we read that already? Scripturally, this woman clothed with the sun should be identified with Israel, according to Joseph's dream. In that dream, the sun represented Jacob. The moon represented Joseph's mother, Rachel. The 11 stars were the sons of Israel, which bowed down to Joseph. And this sign, the 12 stars, Joseph is now among the other tribes of Israel. Oh, okay. In other Old Testament passages, Israel, or Zion, is often represented as a woman. Okay. So who do you think? Who would you interpret as the woman? The church? Israel as an like the ethnic Israelite, right? The people of Israel, or the Jewish nation? I guess the last two are sort of similar, but you see what I'm saying? What do you got? What do you guys think it symbolizes? To devour her child as soon as it was born. Herod was trying to kill Jesus. So let me see if they talk anything more about the tail and the stars. Many believe this describes 1/3 of the angelic host in league with Satan. This army of angelic beings is in league with Satan makes up. This army of angelic beings in league with Satan makes up the world of demonic spirits. God never made an evil being, but he made angels, principalities, and powers capacitated for mighty joys and distinctions in his glorious domain. Yet with free will implied in the very creation of moral beings, which they could exercise for their everlasting weal or woe, many have remained steadfast, to wit, Michael and his angels. But some abode not in the truth, but revolted against the rule of heaven, and become unchanging enemies of God and his kingdom. Let me see what they say about the red dragon. This creature was not literally a great fiery red dragon, but the dragon represented his nature and character. His description symbolically suggests his fierce power and murderous nature, a picture of the fullness of evil in all its hideous strength. This dragon has great power, the 7 heads and 10 horns, and claimed royal authority, the 7 diadems. The crowns represented his presumptive claims of royal authority against the true king. He wants to be considered a king. What if, because it has multiple horns and multiple heads and multiple crowns, that it's not an individual, it isn't Satan, it is an organization or a group, maybe comprising of multiple countries? From the similar description given in 13:1, the parallel references in Daniel 7, it is clear that the revived Roman Empire is in view. The 7 heads and 10 horns refer to the original 10 kingdoms, of which 3 were subdued by the little horn of Daniel 7:8, who is to be identified with the world ruler of the Great Tribulation, who reigns over the revived Roman Empire. Okay, but if that's the case, how would you interpret the 3 stars of heaven? Another thing we can look into deeper. Okay, the 1,260 days. Then the woman fled into the wilderness, persecuted by the dragon. The woman is protected by God in a prepared place for 1,260 days. This helps us understand with certainty that the woman is Israel and not Mary. Yeah, I never thought it would be Mary. I can see why you'd think that, though. How could Mary possibly flee into the wilderness in this way? 1,260 days. This reference to a 3.5 year period connects these events with the final 7 years of Daniel 9 prophecy. Since Revelation 12:5 described the ascension of Jesus, and Revelation 12:6 describes yet to occur events in the 70th week of Daniel, between these two verses lies hundreds of years, our current period. This obvious near, far break in time is typical of prophecy. Daniel's 70-week period prophecy has such a break. We're gonna do some videos analyzing and comparing Daniel and Revelation. Into the wilderness, where she has a place prepared by God. Some believe this place in the wilderness is the rock city of Petra, south of the Dead Sea. Reportedly, Christian businessmen have stocked the place with food and evangelistic tracts written in Hebrew. Interesting. They're getting ready. Prepared uses the same ancient Greek word Jesus used in "I go to prepare a place for you." This demonstrates that God's careful planning works on earth. This demonstrates that God's careful planning works on earth as well as in heaven. When I thought they fled to the wilderness, I thought, in the end times, you flee to the mountains. I think that's where it says. Where did that come from? Flee to the mountains. I think Matthew 24:16. And let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. I don't know. I don't want to get too sidetracked. Let's keep going.
Rule all nations with a rod of iron, and her child was caught up to God and his throne. Then the woman fled into the wilderness, where she has a place prepared by God, that they should feed her there 1,260 days. And war broke out in heaven. Michael and his angels fought with the dragon, and the dragon and his angels fought, but they did not prevail. Nor was a place found for them in heaven any longer.
Right, so Michael and Satan seem to be a better match, right? Because Michael is an angel, an archangel, and Satan is an angel as well. So a battle between Jesus and Satan is not going to be a fair fight. Jesus isn't a created being, So Michael and his angels and Satan and his angels are fighting. But then remember, we had some people who believe that Michael is Jesus.
Nor was a place found for them in heaven any longer. So the great dragon was cast out, that serpent of old called the devil and Satan, who deceives the whole.
Okay, there we go. I explained it right there. So the great dragon was cast out, that serpent of old. The serpent of old in Genesis. That serpent called the devil and Satan. I'm assuming that's what the serpent of old means. Because if you read Genesis, never did it say that that serpent was Satan. It doesn't say that serpent was Satan or the devil or anything like that. It just says that it's a serpent. But now here, it's saying that serpent of old. So I'm just putting two and two in together, and maybe that's where the whole notion of Satan taking on the form of a serpent in the Garden of Eden comes from.
Whole world. He was cast to the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. Then I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, "Now salvation and..."
So when does this take place? This sounds like it should have taken place like way long ago. But we're talking about it in the context of prophecy and end times.
And strength and the kingdom of our God and the power of his Christ have come. For the accuser of our brethren, who accused them before our God day and night, has been cast down. And they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. And they did not love their lives to the death.
Then I heard a loud voice saying, "He was cast down." Then I heard a loud voice in heaven saying, "Now salvation and strength and the kingdom of our God and the power of his Christ have come. For the accuser of our brethren, who accused them before our God day and night, has been cast down, and they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony, and they did not love their lives to the death. So this seems to be an event that took place after Jesus was crucified, which means this is not Satan being thrown out of heaven at the beginning of time, way back. Because is there a real literal account of Satan's fall from heaven in the Bible? I know Isaiah spoke about it, but he spoke about it in metaphor, describing Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, right? Another thing to look into. So many things to look into. Let me pull up a commentary here. At the midpoint of the Great Tribulation, God will turn the tide against Satan, first in heaven, then on earth. A battle will take place that will deny Satan access to heaven. So this commentary is saying that this is a fall from heaven, not a fall, this is not... Okay, let me go back here real quick again.
Caught up to.
So is this fall prior to the third of the angels falling? Yeah, because he didn't fall. He didn't fall yet. So why did the angels fall?
Brethren, who accuse them before our God day and night, has been cast down. And they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony, and they did not love their lives to the death. Therefore rejoice, O heavens, and you who dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and the sea, for the devil has come down to you, having great wrath, because he knows that he has a short time.
But isn't the devil already here? Hasn't he been here on earth? Because this is talking about something that's going to happen according to this commentary, and that's what it does sound like. Michael and his angels, some individuals and groups such as the Seventh-day Adventists and Jehovah's Witnesses insist on saying that Michael is actually Jesus. This is wrong on every count. Some say Michael must be Jesus. Wait, I'm confused. Ricky, you're in the chat and he said it's not you. Who is it then? Netunia said the same thing. Short time. Who's Netunia? Some say Michael must be Jesus because he has his angels. But if Satan, a fallen angelic being, has his angels, can't Michael, an unfallen angelic being, have his angels? Right, that's true. Some say Michael must be Jesus because his name means one like God. But if this were a title of Jesus, it could argue against his deity, one like God. Right? He should be God. Because it would say that Jesus is like God, but not God. There is also an unquestionable God-likeness in all holy beings, which must be very exalted in those preeminent among the ministers of the throne. Ricky says Michael must be the comforter. By comforter, do you mean Jesus? Okay, so Ricky, do you think Michael is Jesus, or do you think Michael is not Jesus. Like, he is, yes, we know that he is the archangel, and he's sort of like this warrior protector type of angel. Do you think that's his own thing, or is Jesus and Michael one and the same? Some say Michael must be Jesus because he is called the archangel, which means leader or prince among the angels. And they say that only Jesus is the leader of the angels. But we know from Daniel 10:13, 20, and 21 that Michael is one angelic prince among others. Also, Paul refers to an archangel in chapter 1 Thessalonians 4:16 in a way that presupposes other archangels. For the Lord himself will descend from heaven with a shout, with the voice of an archangel, and with the trumpet of God, and the dead in Christ will rise first. And let's look at Daniel. But the prince of the kingdom of Persia withstood me 21 days, and behold, Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me, and I had been left alone there with the kings of Persia. Ricky says Michael is Michael, Jesus is Jesus. The white rider with the bow, the words are the arrows. Okay, so you think Jesus is the white rider with the bow. I saw some commentators saying that also. I wasn't sure. I wasn't even sure if that white rider with the bow was a good guy or a bad guy. Because after it, the next rider was creating division amongst the earth, right? So I thought, hey, maybe they were working together, right? Because you create division amongst a nation, and that makes it easy to conquer. So I thought they just went hand in hand. So, but I saw multiple commentaries saying that, what you're saying, Ricky. Some say that Michael must be Jesus because Paul says that at the rapture, the Lord will call his people with the voice of an archangel. But Jesus can use an angel to call out for his people without being that angel. Just as much as God can use a trumpet to sound out a call without being the trumpet. Jude 9 says that Michael would not rebuke or accuse Satan on his own authority, but only say, the Lord rebuke you. This shows that Michael isn't Jesus, because Jesus often rebukes Satan and demons in his own authority. Michael is not to be identified with Christ any more than any of the great angels, any more than any other of the great angels in this book. Such identification would confuse hopelessly the actors in this heavenly scene. Ricky says, Isaiah 58:1, cry aloud, spare not, lift up thy voice like a trumpet, and shew my people their transgression, and the house of Jacob their sins. You can tie what Isaiah says to this, because they're both speaking of a coming judgment, right? And who knows, Isaiah may have been prophesying for both. He may have been prophesying for this end times as well as the judgment and destruction that he was about to face. Well, not he, but, in the Old Testament. So Michael and his angels fought with the dragon, and the dragon and his angels fought. This is a dramatic scene of battle between good angels and bad angels, faithful angels and fallen angels. This is a battle between equals. The dragon represents Satan, and Satan is not a counterpart of God. God has no counterpart. If anyone, Satan is the counterpart of Michael, right? That's what I was thinking when we were reading it. Who seems to be the chief angel opposite this chief of fallen angels. Why is this battle fought? In a previous scene of conflict between Satan and Michael, Satan wanted to prevent the resurrection and glorification of Moses because he knew God had plans for the resurrected and glorified Moses. We saw that. I don't know if this interpretation is correct, but it does seem like it could be likely. We don't know why there was a conflict over Moses' body, but this does seem likely. I mean, I can't really think of anything else. Here is another occasion where Satan wants to get in the way of God's plan for the end times. When is this battle fought? This battle occurs at the midpoint of the 7-year period, as described by Daniel. We got to do a comparison of Daniel prophecy and Revelation. At that time, Michael shall stand up, and the great prince who stands watch over the sons of your people. And there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation, even to that time. And at that time your people shall be delivered. That's what Ricky says. Jeremiah 31:36. If those ordinances depart from before me, saith the Lord, then the seed of Israel also shall cease from being a nation before me forever. The moon, sun, no more. Again, Jeremiah, right? So talking about the coming destruction and judgment. Revelation 21:23. And the city had no need of the sun, neither of the moon to shine in it, for the glory of God did lighten it, and the Lamb is the light thereof. Revelation 21:25. And the gates of it shall not be shut at all by day, for there shall be no night there. Yeah, Ricky's drawing all the parallels right now. This is an interesting question. How is this battle fought? Is it spiritual or is it physical? We know that this is a real fight, but is it a material or a spiritual battle? Our battle with Satan and his demons is spiritual, fought on the battleground of truth and deception, or of fear and faith. In regard to material attacks against the believer, Satan and his demons were disarmed at the cross. Among angels, it is possible that there is a material battle to be fought in a way we can only imagine. Imagine that. In his classic work, Paradise Lost, the great poet Milton imagined this battle. We don't have to go through all that. This shows that nor was there a place found for them in heaven any longer. This shows that up until this happens, Satan does have access to heaven, where he accuses God's people before the throne. I was just going to say that. In Job, we saw that. So now he doesn't have access anymore. So Satan being thrown out of heaven, it could be now this is like the final occurrence. He has no access anymore.
To you, having great wrath, because he knows that he has a short time.
Oh, oops. We finished it. So let me keep going here. This single verse uses many different titles for our spiritual enemy, including dragon, serpent of old, devil, Satan, and he who deceives the whole world. While word on the devil, the title devil is the Greek diabolos, from the verb diabolo, which has the meaning of defaming or slandering. He is the master accuser of the brethren. Netunia said the same thing. Ricky, what's Netunia? I gotta look that up. Netunia. I'm not even getting anything. What is that, Ricky? The Bible describes 4 different falls of Satan. Okay, this is something I want to look into. From glorified to profane in Ezekiel, from access to heaven to restriction to the earth. Okay. I see what they're doing here. And the Lord said to Satan, behold, all this he has is in your power. Only do not lay a hand. Okay, he's speaking to Job. He's speaking to God in heaven. And then restricting to earth here. From the earth to bondage in the bottomless pit for 1,000 years. From the pit to the lake of fire in Revelation 20. In Luke, Jesus said, I saw Satan fall like lightning from heaven. This refers to the first fall of Satan from glorified to profane. You were appointed, how long is it? Let's read this. You were anointed cherub who covers. I established you. You were on the holy mountain of God. You walked back and forth in the midst of the fiery stones. You were perfect in your ways from the day you were created till iniquity was found in you. By the abundance of your trading, you became filled with violence within, and you sinned. Therefore I cast you as a profane thing out of the mountain of God. And I destroyed you, O covering cherub, from the midst of the fiery stones. So who is he casting out here? I don't remember. A mountain of God, you could read that as Jerusalem. Ezekiel 28. And what verse? Ezekiel 28, 14 to 16. Like I said, I've been going through the book and plucking out the misinterpretations and sowing in the spirit of truth. The tares are the misinterpretations. I remember you were talking about that, Ricky. You said you were going to go through and pick out the misinterpretations. Have you been keeping notes? Like, have you been keeping a notebook and like documenting each of the things you think are misinterpretations? Ricky. Oh man, I wish you were keeping a notebook of it. That would be really cool. No time. I feel that that would take time, I guess. Moreover, the word of the Lord came to me saying, I'm reading Ezekiel 28:11. Son of man, take up a lamentation for the king of Tyre, and say to him, thus says the Lord God. Okay, talking about the king of Tyre. And we saw some interpretations saying the king of Tyre is the Antichrist. Or could it be Satan? And if that's the case, we're talking about this fall here. There's so much cross-examination. And so the thing is, there's so much cross-examination. And a lot of the cross-examination is dependent on interpretation. Because why would I cross-examine this with what we're reading here if I didn't interpret this, the king of Tyre, as Satan? Right? So it's cross-examination dependent upon interpretation. That's why it takes so much time to study. That's probably why Ricky says it's taking a whole bunch of time. He's saying there's no time. Because it is a lot. Because in order to find a misinterpretation, Like in this case, how would you interpret this, right? If we're talking about a fall from heaven, like how would you interpret this? How would you interpret this? And sometimes you got to connect these dots. And if you don't have if you haven't interpreted the first point right, where are you connecting from? Where are you connecting to? So it's a lot. But we're gonna have individual videos where we're gonna go look into all of this stuff. So it's gonna be a lot of stuff, a lot of things to look into. But this is really interesting. I saw Satan fall like a lightning from heaven. So Jesus saw Satan's first fall. His angels were cast out with him. This indicates that demonic spirits are indeed fallen angels. Those who joined with Satan in his rebellion against God, these are his angels. These angels are also the same as the third of the stars of heaven described in Revelation 12:4. Well, I don't know. Because wouldn't they be cast out already? Or maybe this could be also talking about how now they don't have access to heaven. Since Satan only drew a third of the stars of heaven, it means that 2/3 of the angels remained faithful to God. It's comforting to know that the faithful angels outnumber the fallen angels 2-1. How long is 13? Let me see. Okay. I think we should stop here. We just did 12, but we're already hitting over an hour. And they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb. The blood overcomes Satan's accusations. So this blood of the Lamb bit here, that makes me feel like we're clearly not talking about the first fall. And so the idea of that Satan is now losing access to heaven entirely because he did have access before, I guess I can see that logic, right? Ricky says, I've even tried helping everyone. It must be hard living next to Israel. No attention. What do you mean? What do you mean, Ricky? What word sticks out? What word seems connected to other chapters? That's what you're thinking as you're going through. You're trying to find words that stick out and how they're connected to other chapters. What is the is that Arabic that you put in the chat? What is that? The thing is, this tough thing about Revelation is there's so many questions unanswered right now, but I have no clue where to start. I could be sitting here literally for the next few days. Which is why I think we just need to take it baby steps. Do baby steps. Break it down step by step. So we'll probably do multiple individual videos on end time prophecy. Because I can't just say Revelation, right? We got to tie in Daniel, maybe some Ezekiel, because there's clear comparisons to be made between John's visions and Ezekiel's visions. He persecuted the woman who gave birth to the male child. Some teach that the woman is a symbol representing all the people of God, including faithful Israel and the church. They use this idea to advance. They use this to advance the idea that the church is here during the tribulation period. But if the woman represents all people of God, the church and faithful Israel, then who are the rest of her offspring? And in Revelation 12:17, it is better to see her as Israel in general or as Messianic Jews in particular. We didn't get to that, so let me keep going here.
Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and the sea, for the devil has come down to you, having great wrath, because he knows that he has a short time.
Now when the dragon saw that he had been cast to the earth, he persecuted the woman who gave birth to the male child. But the woman was given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness to a place.
Okay, that's again running into the wilderness for 1,260 days.
Is nourished for a time, and times, and half a time.
Okay, boom, done, right there. Yesterday we were talking about that. We looked at a commentary that said the 1,260 days, the 3.5 years, does not mean a time and half a time. But boom, right here. It literally says it. The woman goes into the wilderness for 1,260 to 1,260 years, 1,260 days, 3.5 years, and now we're saying that that time period is time, times, and half a time. So that 3.5 years, that 1,260 days, is the time, times, and half a time.
Well, she is nourished for a time, and times, and half a time.
And nourished, the 2 witnesses were prophesying at that time, right? So is that what it means by nourished? Nourished by God's word? The church, if the woman is God's people, they're being nourished, they're being taught God's word because the witnesses are prophesying for 1,260 days.
For a time, and times, and half a time, from the presence of the serpent.
Ricky says no Jews. Okay, so Ricky, who do you think the woman is? Do you think the woman is... So we saw multiple commentaries, right? The woman could be the Jews. It could be ethnic Israelites. It could be the church. What do you think? Ricky says my channel is amazing. Thank you. I appreciate it.
And times, and half a time, from the presence of the serpent. So the serpent spewed water out of his mouth like a flood after the woman, that he might cause her to be carried away by the flood. But the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened its mouth and swallowed up the flood which the dragon had spewed out of his mouth. And the dragon was enraged with the woman, and he went to make war with the rest of her offspring, who keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ.
The rest of her offspring. So, I don't think the child is the Messiah. I don't think the child is Jesus. Wait, no, never mind. The child is Jesus, because we talked about the ruling with the iron rod and all that stuff. The child is Jesus. But the woman, it can't be the church, because the church didn't birth Jesus. Jesus birthed the church, you know? But the nation of Israel, it could be. And the rest of her offspring could be those who started to believe, who have converted over. Ricky's saying the woman is wisdom. Song of Solomon. Am I looking at the right thing, Ricky? I think I remember Solomon referring to wisdom as a woman. He was sort of giving it an identity. And the child is Emmanuel. And I remember in Song of Solomon, he was talking about pursuing wisdom by understanding God, trying to understand God, seeking God. That's the highway of holiness, he said. Okay, so Ricky, you're saying the child is Emmanuel, it's not Israel. Okay, so I see that. But the woman you're saying is wisdom? Or you could maybe look at it as the woman is a pursuit of an understanding of God. And so what is an offspring of, if you try to understand God, that offspring will be people who want to follow God, because that's the result of trying to understand him. So those people would keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. I can see what you're saying, but then how would you say the woman, if the woman is wisdom, if this woman being persecuted is the woman is wisdom from Song of Solomon, wisdom flying into the wilderness to her place where she is nourished? I guess you can nurture wisdom by learning, prophesying, increasing knowledge, spreading knowledge. Okay, I see what you're saying, Ricky. I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. I'm just trying to see where was the part when they talked about the woman first. Okay, so this commentary is saying it represents Israel. Clothed with the sun, moon, and feet, with the moon under her feet, and on her head a garland of 12 stars. This is the first sign of the this is the first of 7 signs that John relates. Because John plainly said that this is a sign. We don't expect this woman to appear literally on earth. God will use this sign to communicate something to John and to us. Women often represent religious systems in Revelation. Jezebel associated with the religious system promoting false teaching. The great harlot is associated with false religion. The bride is associated with the church. The woman clothed with the sun, this woman has been associated with many different religious ideas. Roman Catholics claim this woman is Mary. as the queen of heaven. I don't see that really. Mary Baker Eddy said she was this woman, the founder of Christian Science. Bang! It is common in the Roman Catholic art to represent Mary as standing in a crescent moon with 12 stars around her head. Ooh. Scripturally, this woman, clothed with the sun, could be identified with Israel according to Joseph's dream. And that 12 stars really reminds me of the dream and the sun and the moon and all that. In that dream, the sun represented Jacob and the moon represented Joseph's mother, Rachel, and the 11 stars were the sons of Israel, which bowed to Joseph. In this sign, with 12 stars, since Joseph now is among the other tribes of Israel. Ricky says, remember, it's trying to make understand the Old Testament. I see that in the New Testament, where writers of the New Testament are interpreting things in the Old Testament. Does that always mean that their interpretations were correct? I don't know. Man, there's so much. There's literally so much here. And so we're in an hour 17. I'm going to stop now because we can literally keep going on forever looking into this. But like I said, we're going to do individual videos digging deeper into individual topics, because right now the goal is to read through the Bible, get to the end, and obviously study and try and answer questions as best we can. But with Revelation, I'm finding this trend where we're not getting concrete answers to anything. Makes sense. People have been studying, been studying Revelation for so long and still don't know what it means. So don't expect us to get all the answers on our first go through. We're going to do individual videos, maybe look at multiple different interpretations, do some cross-referencing and further analysis. And so we'll have a lot to look into. So Ricky, thank you for stopping by again after so long, man. It was cool. It was nice seeing you. Thank you for taking part in the chat and sticking all the way through. We only did 12. I was planning on doing 13, but 12 already took so long. So we'll jump into 13 tomorrow. Maybe we'll only get through 13 tomorrow, but we'll see how it goes. So hope you enjoyed chapter 12 of Revelation. I thought it was real interesting. I thought 12 was really interesting. A lot to discuss, a lot to think about, and a whole lot more questions to be answered. So hope you enjoyed it. Hope you have a great rest of your day. Tomorrow we'll jump into Revelation chapter 13 and continue on from there. All right? Hope you have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow. Take care. Bye-bye.